Welcome to India Day 2019. Delighted that the UK Government and the City of London are jointly hosting India Day at Mansion House here today. The objective of India Day is to highlight key opportunities to take forward the UK-India trade relationship within the umbrella of the financial services sector. Please welcome to the stage the British High Commissioner to India, Sir Dominic Asquith.
We are, in the case of the UK, the largest G20 investor in India, and over the last 4 years the number of Indian parent companies in the UK has quadrupled. So I think we're doing something right in both countries. I'm delighted to introduce to you the Prime Minister.
In 2019, the story of the UK and India is not a story of our complex and intertwined history, but of the flows of capital, technology and business, of the living bridge of people and ideas that make us, in the words of Prime Minister Modi, an unbeatable combination, both today and for the future. And what a combination it is. In 2018, the combined turnover of Indian companies in the UK reached almost £50 billion, more than trebling in just 5 years. Indian FDI in the UK is growing faster than that from any other country, soaring by an incredible 321% in just 12 months. Bilateral trade rose by 14% last year. It's a story of incredible success for both our nations, and both our nations are committed to ensuring that it continues. Over the past 3 years, I've worked closely with Prime Minister Modi to make that happen. Together, we've developed an ambitious UK-India tech partnership, which is already creating new jobs and supporting thousands more across the UK. Together, we've launched a programme of collaboration on financial services, marrying the best of British expertise with India's global leadership in technology. Together, just last week in fact, we've opened a £40 million fast-track start-up fund, supported by both the UK and Indian governments, to invest in Indian start-ups focused on emerging technology. And together we've launched a Green Growth Equity Fund, co-investing £240 million of anchor capital to invest in green and renewable energy. Let us support one another, bringing together people, capital and ideas to benefit the UK and India alike. And let us turn the shared values that make our nations great into shared prosperity for all of our people. Thank you.
Please give a very warm welcome onto stage Honourable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Piyush Goyal.
Two economies which can partner with each other, which can support the imperatives of each other. The British business and investment can help India in its growing demand for new products, new services, and good Indian skilled manpower and talent can help British business become even more competitive. There are huge opportunities waiting in India. Thank you very much for being here today, and my best wishes to each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, onto stage the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of the City of London, Alderman Peter Estlin.
Over the years, the City of London has become the capital of capital. We are home to world-renowned institutions, like the Bank of England, literally just across the road. And for over a century, India has been an important partner here in the city. In fact, some of our most long-standing businesses in the city are Indian, with the State Bank of India having offices here since the turn of the century. Today, the London Stock Exchange is the leading issuancer of Masala bonds. So this is great work and a testament to the strong bonds of friendship and business between the UK and India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. I'd like to introduce our next speaker now, Crispin Simon. Crispin is the British Deputy High Commissioner of India and Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for South Asia.
Prime Minister Modi coined the term living bridge to illustrate the close ties that exist between our two countries of history, of values, and of bonds of family and business relationships. And I think that there is nowhere stronger for the Living Bridge than in the financial services industry, providing the cash and credit that are the bloodstream of an economy, and the start-up and scale-up capital for innovation. And it's the professional services associated with the financial services industry that keep these arteries open. And that's why we felt it's so important to have an India Day in the heart of the City of London in this important year. It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Minister Graham Stewart, former chair of the Important Education Committee in the House of Commons, and for the last 2 years has been Minister for Investment in the Department of International Trade.
India's vast economy powers ahead, producing millions of new jobs annually to meet the needs of your burgeoning young workforce. Britain's dynamic, high-value, highly skilled business ecosystem has the capabilities and expertise to help oil the wheels of this astonishing economic transformation. Total trade between us increased by 14% in 2018 to 20.5 billion, and the UK was the largest EU investor in India between 2000 and 2018. And India is now the third biggest international investor in the UK economy after the US and Germany. Now, as we face growing headwinds in the global economy, my department will continue to work hard to help nurture the mutually beneficial commercial and cultural ties between Britain and India. Thank you very much.
Welcome to India Day 2019. This panel will discuss the biggest opportunities for collaboration in financial services between the UK and India, and identify ways to build on the success of the India-UK financial partnership.
I'm going to open the discussion by asking each of our panellists the most obvious question, which is what they think the biggest opportunities are for a financial services partnership, a deeper partnership between the UK and India.
So opportunities in terms of the vibrant regulatory framework that London has, or the UK has been able to create, and the learnings for India out of that, a good, strong regulatory mechanisms, the dispute resolution mechanisms, the stable framework that you've had for so many years, the confidence that you've been able to build in the markets in London. And I believe that some of those learnings could be very well duplicated in India. At the same time, India has some of the finest professionals and finest minds who can help the United Kingdom strengthen the financial markets here. We can actually create very strong financial services sector back home in India also, and then both of them working together can possibly serve the interests of companies and business within these two countries, and also the outreach program could be huge.
As you said, Senator Tutter's been there for a long time, but I think we do capture the essence of what the Minister was referring to. We've got about 20,000 people between Chennai and Bangalore who are focusing on our global operations, so it's our global operational hub, but also building the technology to serve our global business, as well as our Indian business. So we've got another 6,000 people who are dedicated to serving our Indian clients. That kind of partnership, and it's exactly the kind of back and forth that the Minister referred to, where, of course, we have access to a very deep and highly qualified labor pool, also excellent technologists in India who complement very much the innovation that we can see, in our case, out of the UK or other markets where we operate around the world.
We would like to see more companies partnering with Indian companies, not just from a promoter or a shareholder perspective, but also from bringing in a lot of learnings, especially in the pension space. And UK has really covered a huge ground. Pension in India is just a 4% penetration. And if we can take some of the learnings, including what, say, the regulator, the unified regulator has done in the UK, the PRA, interregulatory connect would also help, again, to pass on good practices.
I mean, first of all, it is so easy for both countries to work together in financial and professional services. When I sit in an Indian boardroom, I'm completely familiar with the practices, with the legislation. I feel at home, and this is a very great advantage for British firms doing business there. I've had the pleasure, together with my friend Uday Kotak, co-chairing the India-UK Financial Partnership for the last 5 years. That's been a very interesting example of cooperation. We have around 30 British firms in financial and professional services, 30 Indian firms. Honourable ministers give us policy questions which they want to have answered. These firms sit together, pro bono, and combine their brains and wisdom to help India answer policy questions. And I would say that we've been very influential in the new insolvency regime the Honourable Minister referred to, the corporate bond market, corporate governance, etc., etc. But there's more to do. And India has some of the greatest financial service firms in the world. And I would encourage the Indian government to be a bit more self-confident in letting free some of those firms.
A big thank you to our panellists. We still have one more keynote speaker, so it gives me great pleasure to welcome onto stage Parliamentary Under Secretary of State at the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, Lord Ashton of Hyde.
Our nations are at the forefront of a technology revolution. The UK recently celebrated the success of our £130 billion tech sector during London Tech Week. Our inward AI investment is over £1 billion, more than Germany, France, Netherlands, Sweden and Switzerland combined. Likewise, India is transforming rapidly, building over 100 smart cities, developing innovative green technology and creating a digital market for more than 1 billion people. The opportunities this brings for both of our nations is immense. To take the tech partnership to the next level, we will establish the UK-India Tech Hub in the coming months. This will focus on working together for the mutual benefit of our world-leading tech industries. It will focus on building a skilled and inclusive labour force and encouraging innovation, research and development and commercial partnerships between the UK and India. Today, I'm delighted to launch the Hub's inaugural programme, Go Global India. Go Global is a flagship programme as part of the UK's International Tech Hub network. The programme will support Indian startups who want to use technology to drive development and improve people's lives. It will help them to build their business skills and capability, build links with the UK's thriving tech sector, and work with UK expertise to take their businesses to the next level through a global tech hub network. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Britain has this ambitious plan for net zero emissions by 2050. And we heard from Minister Goyal yesterday that India is stepping up its plans for green financing, leading on to more renewable energy. And we heard from the Lord Mayor this morning that we could now have green masala bonds. So, Nikhil, what would that mean?
So we had the first one actually. Minister Goyal brought NTPC to do that a couple of years ago. And I think what was interesting about that experience, and also the experience of Axis Bank, is the issuers came and they issued green instruments to internationally certified standards, and they were able, in doing that, to attract a pool of investors, which included investors that had never invested in Indian issuers before, or in corporate India before. And that is something we're seeing right across the green finance arena, which is that those issuers, whether it's bonds or other products that are willing to disclose and are willing to meet these standards, are able to attract a broader pool of capital and diversify their funding sources.
Vikram, talking of the stock exchanges, the fact is, and putting it gently, India has a lot of focus now on green energy, but perhaps not a proportionate attention to green financing. That is still in its early stages.
Well, I think in order to get green financing done on the exchange through the bond financing route, I think first you need to get the corporate bond market developed in a more robust way. So that, I think, is on its way. There have been several measures that have been taken in the last couple of years to get the bond market ramped up. I think once you have a robust corporate bond market, I think the green financing through the bond market is a subset of that.
So Joy, you're trying to feed that in quite innovative ways. Your group is quite new, it's quite young, it's a bit public, it's a bit private. What are you looking to do to that end?
So India has a huge infrastructure deficit, and as we've heard this morning, it'll take probably $1.5 trillion over the next few years to even try to fill the deficit. So there has to be a public-private or a purely private response to address this gap. And hence, you need equity capital. You can't just, the debt will only come if equity is there. And we've actually already succeeded in getting capital from sovereign funds, from Indian institutions, private institutions, and from multilaterals. We are very hopeful that in the next few weeks, we will be closing our first investments from pension funds, international pension funds.
Thinking global investment, Arturo, your bank has been taking quite a lead in green financing around the world, but India is not quite on the top of your list. Why is that?
Well, first of all, green financing hasn't been around for long, so I think we need to take that into account. Obviously, we committed $100 billion to green financing initiatives by the group. We as an institution, we would like to see. Obviously, the commitment in terms of CO2 emissions is very clear, so that's very welcome. But also in terms of the regulation, across the different core infrastructure areas. All in all, India is actually going in the right direction, addressing all these global trends.
Right. Now, stepping a little away from the macro picture, Nandita, your group has actually invested in a project. Tell us about this and what's it been like?
We invested in a Delhi-based solar developer called Solarise at the back end of last year. That's why when we invested in this company, after a lot of due diligence, etc., we are actively involved on the board, at the IC, at making decisions along with the other shareholders. And a big part of the way the governance was set up in that company also has to do with ongoing monitoring. So we do ongoing monitoring at the project level and reporting on environmental issues, on jobs created, the obvious one, CO2 emissions saved, but energy security also. So I think that, in a holistic approach, gives our European investors the comfort that we're bringing that governance.
And Mukul, you moved from Tata to now initiate this ESG project. What is it that you're seeking to do?
We're really creating a vehicle that will allow foreign institutional investors to invest in the Indian public markets, supporting companies in the small and mid-cap space that are really committed to getting onto an ESG journey. The focus on small and mid-caps is important because these are the companies, I think, that are initially, at least when you're seeing the entire ESG paradigm change in India, most receptive to change, able to change, and need help. There are options available. The offer we are making is this is an incentive-driven option to actually influence corporate behavior in the right direction.
Thank you very much.
The last session of the India Day event was a panel discussion on the topic Opportunities in India's Growing Economy and was chaired by Chief Economist, Foreign and Commonwealth Office Kumar Iyer. The British Deputy High Commissioner for Western India and Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for South Asia, Christian Simon, was also part of the eminent panel, and this is what he had to say on the topic.
We would like to encourage British companies to put India on their board agenda at least twice a year, for example, maybe more often, but at least twice a year. And I think that it would be remiss of all of us in government, especially in the British High Commission, if we failed to draw the attention of British business to this opportunity. And I think that's point number one. Point number two is to provide assistance where we can.
You saw today in the room and on the panels the interest that the UK has, specifically in the case of the city, as what it can contribute to the continued growth in the Indian economy.
we are partnered with the Government of India and the Government of Tamil Nadu in a FinTech Center of Excellence in Chennai, which came up a few months back, and we are one of the pioneers there. On the UK side, we have partnered with a significant real estate development capability where firms in India can actually use that facility for basing their offices and getting access to the UK market.
With a stable institutional framework, huge growth rate, young demographic, strong presence in the G20, I think India offers huge opportunities for the global investor community.
The India-UK Financial Partnership Initiative that's been in place over the last 4 or 5 years has achieved a lot. It's a fabulous initiative, and I hope it continues going forward.
Perhaps the most encouraging thing, not just India's appetite for change, not just the confidence of the bilateral relationship, but our willingness to work together on some of those global problems, was perhaps the thing that filled me with the greatest optimism for the future.